Hi, my name's Dan Veall and welcome to my overview video of the brand new 802 High Dynamics Linear Bass Amplifier from EBS in Sweden. This is a 100% analog signal path beast of an amplifier, kicking out some 750 watts RMS into a 2 ohm load or 450 watts into a 4 ohm load. I'm going to go across the front panel briefly, and then I'm going to spin the amplifier around and have a look at some of the connections around the back to give you some idea about the feature set that this amplifier has. Across the front panel, if you are aware of the TD and HD range already, then this amplifier is going to be pretty familiar. But even if you're not, the feature set is dead easy. And it's a really easy way of getting a great sound without too much messing around. On the left hand side here, standard input jack for my instrument. This is a 2 megohm impedance preamp input, which means if you're using piezo pickups or something like that, you're not going to get any unnecessary loading and actually going to get some nice clarity straight into the front of the amplifier. To the right of that, we have two buttons marked boost. Think of this as the character switch from previous models split into two. So rather than hitting the character switch and having bass and treble boost, you can now have one or the other or both. Now that is really handy if you've got maybe a bright sounding bass and you don't want to add any more top end. Punch that low and shake the windows. Fantastic. Moving along, gain control with peak LED. This is, as it suggests in the manual, you want to play to the point that you're turning up the gain control. We are seeing that little peak light flicker. This is going to give you your optimum signal into the amplifier before it starts breaking up and driving. To the right of that, we have a one knob compressor. This is superb. The threshold is set internally, and this knob here controls the ratio of the compressor. Fantastic if you're switching between maybe slap bass and fingerstyle or plectrum work. And by riding that compressor, then you're going to get a nice smooth sound across the board, and the oven's going to love it. Front of house is going to really appreciate that. I dial in with my bass until the blue LED starts flickering and maybe decide if I want a little more compression or a little bit less compression, and I like to ride that to give myself a nice even sound. On board the 802, I love this already. I love graphic equalizers and I love passive tone stacks that you find in some valve amplifiers. But if there's something I really want on every single bass amplifier that I plug into, is a semi-parametric equalizer. What this basically means is, on a standard amplifier, is that my individual tone controls, bass, low mid, high mid, treble, are usually fixed. The frequency that I can boost and cut, I can't change. Now, this might be at odds with the instrument and the cabinet I'm using. Wouldn't it be great if I can find a frequency which is sympathetic to both? Great, right, it's here. On the bass and treble controls, which are shelving EQs, we have a little switch where we can choose a frequency center. On the bass control, it's shelving from 60 Hz, 80 Hz, or 100 Hz, and I can flick the switch to decide which one's going to suit me the best. Some nice subby bass end for my drop tuning, I might go for 60 Hz. For a bit of kick drum type punch, I might choose 100 Hz. Over to the treble control, this is also a shelving equalizer. I have just two positions, 5.5K for a nice bit of pick bite, and 8K for a bit more additional top end brightness. And I can boost and cut either of them from a center click. Thank you very much, EBS, for working on dark stages. It's actually really, really handy to be able to feel where you are on the control. For the low mids and the high mids, again, if you're used to the TD and HD range, in fact, even the Renown amplifiers as well, they have one single controllable mid-range control. The 802 now has two, and I've kind of really wanted to see this, so I'm very, very pleased to see that the 802 has got it. What this basically means is you can see on this dial, I've got my frequency center for my control. Straight up 610 Hz, and I can boost and I can cut. So if I want to have that lovely passive tone stack scoop, I might choose about 500 Hz, bring the dial around to where I think that is, and then I can cut away and I get that lovely scoopy sound. The high mid control, much the same, but I'm going to look at the higher mid-range rather than the lower mid-range, and you can see on the dial here that actually I've got some higher figures to play with. But I do like the fact there's a slight crossover. So maybe, oh actually no, I wanted the 500 Hz up here. That's great because this dial starts at 200 Hz. So I can get the two to work together if I want to. Treble control we've touched already. The bright is a high pass filter. And as I boost it up, I'm going to get some lovely top-end air to my sound. For active instruments, I actually found that I'd like to pull that down a little bit. But you know what? If I wanted to make my old vintage P bass sound a bit more active, it's great because I can push this up and get a nice new string kind of characteristic. One of the features I really like, actually, I have the Renown 750 as well. Astonishingly loud amplifier. Now, one thing which we really like about amplifiers, certainly valve amps, is when you start cranking them and making them work really hard, you get that lovely power amp distortion. But when you have an amplifier like this, the only way that we're going to get that drive sound is if we start annoying our drummer and our guitarist. That actually sounds like quite a lot of fun, actually, but you know, in a live environment, a studio environment, that's probably not the wisest thing to do. So rather than pushing the volume all the way up, we have a drive control on board, which is connected to a kind of tube emulation circuit. And as I push that up, I'm going to get more and more bite into my sound, and then I can set my volume to taste. All the way down, it's bypassed. All the way up, lots and lots of drive, and you're going to find where is going to be most suitable for the style of music that you are playing. For my vintage P bass, I like to warm it just a little bit, and I think the dial was about there. Okay, master volume, power switch, standby here is just a mute switch. Put the amplifier into mute, and all of my outputs are muted, so I can, for example, unplug my bass without things going bang and clunk. That's the front panel. Let's flip the amplifier around and we'll have a look at the back. A quick switch around then, and we have the panel in front of us. Power input on the far left hand side, this is the standard IEC connector. And in dead center we have two speak-on outputs wired in parallel. These are locking and heavy duty, and I really like to see these on modern amplifiers. This is a really great inclusion that we've had for a lot of years. The EBS cabinets, we're looking at the Neoline 410 here, also has speak-on connectors on the back. And indeed, EBS even do a really nice line of big chunky locking cables as well. So you can have your matching head cabinet and cables. Across the top here then we have an array of connectors. We have a tuner output, which is great for connecting to an external tuner. Underneath that, a line output. This is very, very handy actually. This is a post volume knob output. Should you decide that the 802 is not loud enough, you can slave other amplifiers from it. So if you decide that you suddenly need a whole bunch of extra cabinets and you want to drive them with another amplifier, then you can do it from here and maintain all of your EQ settings from the 802. Next up, effects loop. This effects loop is post EQ, post drive settings and everything like that. So if you would rather insert your pedals, yes, that's right, you can insert your pedals here rather than line level studio equipment. You can put them after your drive settings, after your EQ settings, and after your compression settings. So maybe I want to put in a delay or something like that. I can insert it here and it's going to sit in the signal path where I want it. Two connectors for remote control. We have 4 items we can remote on this amplifier: the character, the filters, the drive, and the overall mute. You can do that off separate foot switches of your own, or indeed EBS actually have the RM4 remote control, which will plug straight into this amplifier and you can access all of those functions on one foot switch. Okay, moving on. I really like this. 2 XLR sockets providing DI output. The first one here is a pre-EQ. If you're into reamping and the like, then this is going to be the output to use. Take it straight out to your recording device and then you can later feed your amplifier with the same signal and then reamp. Superb. To the right of this we have a post-EQ DI output, so all of your settings on the front are being added to this sound as it comes out, and you can feed it to front of house PA, your recording device, at the same time as the pre-EQ and mix and match. But I also really like the addition of this. Just underneath my finger here, there is a speaker simulator on board this amp. So, for example, if you have to turn the amp all the way down because you don't want to upset the neighbors, but you still want that recorded sound of a speaker cabinet being mic'd up, enable the speaker simulator and you're good to go. Of course, conversely, if you're using speaker simulators elsewhere in your chain, then you can just bypass it and you're going to get that lovely amp DI sound. Nice big fan on the right hand side here. This is pretty much telling you that the amp means business. It's expecting to work hard and therefore it needs to stay nice and cool. So that's on the right hand side there. The amplifier, of course, is rack mountable, so this is tour ready, but the ultra cool, clear sound you're getting from the 802 amplifier is going to be absolutely brilliant for studio use as well. And actually, having played with this for a little while now, I think this amplifier is absolutely cracking. I'm looking forward to do some more videos when we can crank it up and listen to some of the sounds it is capable of achieving. But for now, I hope that you have enjoyed this first look at the EBS 802. And I look forward to bringing some more videos again soon. Take care, and I'll see you again.